Hey everyone, Brandon here with The Periphery. So I've been doing a lot more writing this winter, so you've seen probably fewer videos, but you've also seen more posts put up on the in the community section of this channel about some things that I've been working on. And one of the stories that I've posted about a couple of times has been this one that was just published yesterday in the Minneapolis Star Tribune, the Sunday edition. I got a full-page story, 2,000 words or so, on the wolf issue in modern America. And I stress the modern America part because I use the wolf issue as sort of a proxy topic that unveils the larger issues going on in the U.S. So, you know, we know this channel, The Periphery, as that which people come to for human interest stories. And I've got some of those that I'm working on as well, around homelessness, around some others that I've interviewed about their lives. But I also like the social analysis. And I've done some videos about that over the years. This is in that vein, and it's my attempt to take this piece and go over it, because I think that the issues that it highlights are super interesting and important, and even though it's better to read the story, and I'll provide the link in the description, it's also worthy to talk about, because some of these things, you know, in a print format, you have to be very linear and be as brief as possible. And in this format, we can I can take a little bit more time to I don't know, maybe flesh out a couple of the points that I made, and then of course engage with you in the comments if you have any. So I live in Minnesota, and I'm from northern Minnesota, and so this wolf issue has long been one that has indirectly affected me, sometimes directly. I do deer hunt. And in my youth, I would deer hunt in high school, and we'd hear about wolves. So it's always been like, oh, are the wolves going to kill all the deer? Are they going to threaten the hunt? And there are some farmers whose livestock is sometimes threatened by wolves. So it was just sort of in the background. It wasn't a real big thing. But what really interested me about this topic as of late is, one, it's gotten a lot louder, and that's happened for two reasons. We've had a lot of deer get killed off because of the winter. And the wolves, we have a lot of wolves in Minnesota, and so they're taking advantage of the bad winters by killing more deer. Like, so that sort of compounds the deer fatality. And then the fact that there are fewer deer means that there's and we have just as many wolves. It means they're going more places to find food, and so they're spreading. And they've been killing some dogs, and it's become a problem. But I think the other reason why the issue is much louder is because of the internet. And what it has done to the wolf issue and so many other issues in the country, whether it be immigration, abortion, COVID, and the response to it. So again, the wolf issue is just one of many where we can kind of look at two sides, both sides that I'm close to here in Minnesota. And so it's a good example of how this issue kind of I know it gets a little bit out of hand, and then it starts affecting politics and how that can make things even more difficult. But also just looking at the wolf issue, or maybe it's like the same as the lion issue in Africa. What we have is a situation where there's a revered animal. People love wolves, people love lions, and yet these animals do harm. So how do you handle something that people who are unaffected and just admire these animals, love from afar, and don't want anything bad to happen to them, versus those who may or may not like them as well, but they're also getting the harm that they cause, whether it's their livestock or whatever. And it's a tough thing to manage, but it's very hard these days, right? And so the piece starts off by saying this. So like, it's 2024, and the internet has put a megaphone on social discourse. And then I demonstrate that in two ways on both sides. One is you know, Instagram and accounts on Instagram, and just Facebook posts that I've seen, YouTube videos that I've seen, that really love and show just unfettered love for wolves. And that's because they're beautiful, majestic animals. But in these like bite-sized Instagram post morsels of media, you know, there's no room for discussion. There's no room for consideration. It's all pro-wolf all the time. We love the wolf photos. We love the wolf cubs. We love that the wolf numbers are going up. We love that they're spreading into new territory. And there's zero consideration for the negative. Well, the negative happens, and I think it's even happening in increased numbers across the country, whether it's livestock, pets, or killing deer, elk, moose, and so forth. And so kind of a pushback to all the pro-wolf has been a groundswell here in Minnesota of these events here. I don't know if you can see that super well, but it's these wolf predation meetings that have been taking place. And that's like the social phenomenon that really got me interested in this. Like, wow, there are these grassroots town hall kinds of meetings happening, and they're not just being pushed by some sort of top-down corporate deer hunting association. Like this was a groundswell of a grassroots organization that did form as Hunters for Hunters, but it was at the request of locals in all these communities around the state that they spread, and they did all of these events, and they've done now like 17. And what really struck me was how popular they were. When I learned about one in a very small town of 98 people, not too terribly far from where I grew up in northern Minnesota, they had, according to the organizer, 300 people there. Well, even if they had 100 people there, that would have been an impressive number. But to say you had way over that in a town of 98 people is impressive. And I've every event I've heard of since, or have seen video of since, has been equally as packed. And that included one that I went to. So these wolf predation meetings put on by an organization called Hunters for Hunters. Again, I don't know how well you can see that here. I'll put the photo actually right above my head of the color version. So I don't know how many people were in there, 400. And this is a town that's unincorporated. And it's also a ways south. So I didn't expect that many people because I didn't think there were that many wolves in the area. But the wolves have drifted south. And a lot of them hunt north too, so they see the wolves and have the problem with them up there. But you've got this pushback of people who are saying wolves are out of control. We need to do something. So I went to this event, and a couple of state representatives from this area attended and spoke about, yeah, we want to do something about this. One wild card in all of this is that wolves are protected federally, so the state really can't, unless it decides to defy the federal law, the state can't allow a hunt. If the wolf was not on the endangered species list, which I think most scientists agree it shouldn't be, it's got the numbers, it keeps being put back on because of push from wolf advocates. I think that's a fairly non-controversial thing to say. But even if it was delisted from the endangered species list, the state, I don't know if they would do a hunt anyway, because the state is run by those who lean left, and they tend to be more protective of the wolves than those who are more conservative. So again, we've got that conservative, liberal, right, left, Republican, Democrat dichotomy. But they're there, they're looking at, they're talking about, oh, I've seen this many wolves here, I've got trail cams, I've seen all of these wolves. And it got me asking, well, how big of a threat are wolves? So then the story takes a turn from this event, and it has me then interacting with a leading wolf researcher in the state, and so I think because of that, probably in the nation. His name's Thomas Gable, and he is, I think, lead at the Voyageurs Wolf Project in the very northern part of the state at Minnesota's only national park, right on the border of Canada. And there's a lot of wolves there, and they study them. They study what they eat. They study where they migrate, how they hunt. You know, all of these wolf things. They tag them, and then they keep track of them. And he was like, look, there are as many wolves now as there have been the last several years. According to our numbers and the numbers from the DNR, this isn't the case where there's suddenly a large influx of wolves that has decimated the deer population. What he says is, look, the fact is that there are, we've had a couple of really bad winters. That's why the deer numbers are down. And I don't dig too much into that with this story. The point is that deer numbers are down, wolf numbers are strong, and with fewer deer, the wolves are going to more places. So What are we going to do? Is it bad enough to do something about? And of course, the people at this event and the people who empathize and sympathize with them would say, absolutely, we need to. Part of what riles them up is the pictures of, say, a dead calf or a dead dog. And there have been a few of those shared on this group's or similar groups' Facebook pages. And you've got a video testimony of a couple in northern Minnesota whose dog was in their front yard when wolves attacked it in a gruesome fashion, and they had to pick up their dog and the pieces of it and bury him. And so it's traumatizing, it's heartbreaking, and all of that is emotional fodder that makes people say, we need to do something about this. And it's in that point of, what do we do about this, that I think is the real crux of this story. Because you could debate whether it's wise to do something, right? You might say, no, let nature take its course. We've had a mild winter in Minnesota this year, so the deer numbers will be stronger in the spring and we'll start to see more deer. You might say, knock it off. There are not enough deer. It takes a couple seasons to get deer back. In the meantime, we don't want to see more of our dogs die. You know, we should have a wolf hunt. Okay, I understand both sides of that. But then the article goes into what I think is the real point, and that's that there's a whole other reason for taking some action. And that's that we have a society, frankly, that's fragmenting and slowly coming apart. And so when I bring up the idea of intervention, it's lawmakers, leaders, regulators, whether it's at the DNR, whether it's a state lawmaker, whether it's, I don't know, someone else, a trusted scientist, to speak to this issue, to address the concerns that these individuals have. That's the intervention that's needed. And maybe it's a wolf hunt. Maybe it's just telling them, look, the deer will come back. We don't need to do a wolf hunt. Otherwise, there is just this constant discord, this distancing from them and their sense that they're not listened to. Because the way it is right now, whether it's COVID or how COVID was handled, whether it's immigration today, whether it's how crime is handled, there are just these camps, right? These two sides, basically, that continue to drift apart. And there's this growing sense of the other side of that being truly an other. Like, there was a quote I put in here from a story. It said, stay away from Minnesota if you right-wingers don't like the way we do things here. That was one of the comments that was in a story about these Hunters for Hunters town hall meetings. Someone commented that in the comments. Once you have that kind of discord, that's dangerous. And as then I point out, is that politics runs downstream from people who really want to, take it to the other side, who don't see the other side as being people, right? They're right wingers, whatever name you want to call them. What the state Democrats did was they proposed a bill in 2023 to make wolf hunting illegal forever for the public. So this desire at these town hall events for there to be a wolf hunt, like that's their thing. They really want a wolf hunt. And I'm not saying you should grant a wolf hunt. I'm saying you should address the concerns that underlie why they want a wolf hunt so bad. But what the Democrats did, maybe not, intentionally to maliciously like throw it in their faces of the hunters, but what they did, but what it did say to them was, no, we're not going to give you a hunt, and we never will. We're going to make it illegal forever for you to do it. So if you even think of having a wolf hunt, you're going to be a felon, or you're going to jail, or whatever. I mean, it was, the way I term it, it was like codifying the division. So then I end the piece by saying, look, all of these factors that have led to our polarization, fragmentation, whether it's a hunter saying, hey, see, I got all these wolves on my trail cam. There's way too many wolves. And maybe that's not true. Maybe it's the same wolf 6 times, but he doesn't know that. That kind of technology, the internet, sharing a picture of a dead dog online that makes everyone want to wolf hunt because they get all emotional. Instagram accounts that make everyone love wolves and always want to see their numbers rise despite the consequences. So these aspects of technology and the drifting apart of different groups of Americans, I then say, you know what? Therein lies our solution. That's how this piece ends. Therein lies our solution, because we can work with these trends to make things more flexible. Like, the pressure is already there, right? The social pressure. We've got people upset about dogs dying. We've got people upset because these hunters want to shoot wolves, and wolves have to be protected at all costs. We just have a lot of energy. And so what I say is, let's release some of the pressure, relieve some of the pressure by increasing the capacity for activity, if that makes sense. So, and in fact, this idea was proposed. I was able to glean it from what others in this story said while I was talking to them or listening, as was the case at that listening session. The first was that researcher, Gable, and he said, look, these hunters have all these trail cams, and so it's making them think there are more wolves than they are. And I don't know if it's from that exact moment he said the next thing, but what he ended up saying was, why don't they put all those photos, or why don't they do it in a systematic way so that they can then partake in some actual rigorous science? Like, we've got 100 trail cams in these spots over this long of time, and we've seen wolf numbers go up year over year or down year over year or whatever. But if you've got a regular, measurable, quantifiable way of tallying these things, then suddenly you're partaking in the science. And what that does is it allows for there to be more data from more sources that more people will trust. Because there's also the issue of institutional distrust with the rise of the internet and sort of the politicization of different things. And, the whole COVID thing makes people now distrust doctors and vaccines. And there's been a lot of that in general. We distrust our financial institutions after the financial crisis of 2007, 2008. So these hunters don't always trust the wolf numbers. Well, they can do their own science. And now we've got more science coming from more people, more voices. This is what technology allows. You don't have to be a $1 million or $2 million budgeted study to do to keep track of wolves over an extended period of time. You can do it with cheaper technology. The other thing then downstream of that is policy. And it's something that a attendee at that event outside of St. Cloud brought up. He raised his hand and he simply said, hey, they made pot legal. Why can't they make a wolf hunt legal? And, pot federally is illegal. It's a Schedule I drug, which means no uses for any reason. And yet Minnesota legalized it for recreational use. So they're one of many states to have done so. So why, if Minnesota can defy the federal rules around marijuana, why can't it defy the federal rules around wolves? And of course, you could say it's apples and oranges, whatever. But the point is that we've got a more fluid, fragmented, disparate, unwieldy kind of society with the rise of the internet. And it's important, I think, then to have policy that reflects that, because top-down, rigid, everyone under this rule is going to do the same thing is not going to fly. It's not going to fly as much. People are not putting up with that. And so at the very end of the piece, I compared. I said, look, we have two ways to go. We can either face this changing world by following what Gable suggested, and let's get more people to partake in the science. Let's distribute the authority. Let's increase the information. And in all, that would make for more, I think, that would help us all be on the same page. And in this case, say, hey, you know what? There are this many wolves, which the state says is about 2,700 wolves in Minnesota, which is, by the way, about half of all that is in the lower 48 states in the U.S. So so Minnesota is a special case, and I think they probably could have their own state policy around wolves because they're exceptional with how many we have. But he invited there to be more activity from more sources. Okay, that's opening things up. That's a more open. That's good. If science is coming from one resource, that's a narrow pipeline through which all of this is being resourced and referenced, and then that's just rife with risk. Like, oh, we don't trust that source. They're bought. They're corrupt. Whatever. So distribute that risk. And the other approach is, nope. Let's just double down on the on a law that further restricts people's behavior in the ways that our exceedingly partisan viewpoint insists on. And I try to make it clear without being so over the top about it that these are divergent, and one is good and one is bad. Although I don't say it that way, but I believe that. And I ask the question, which way to the future, fellow Minnesotans? And really what it is it isn't which way, it's which approach. Because decentralization is happening, right? We've just got a more fragmented world. We've got people over here in Facebook groups, people over there following these Instagram accounts. We've got me on YouTube talking to individuals. Everyone's got their own little siloed channel, and that's okay as long as we all can get along. It's when we disagree on policy and feel that we're threats to each other that things go sour. Keeping both those things in mind, be wise about policy, be fair about research, and you know, may those who can direct such initiatives keep cool heads and not get radicalized in either direction. So anyway, I believe that's true for every issue, and I think we will, because it's necessary. Well, maybe we won't. I'd like to see, I say that, I'd like to see more cool heads prevail and surface so that we can approach these with, you know, level head, fair, reasonable, and heartfelt. Right? Because we lose that very quickly in these discussions where people don't care about the fact that someone's dog was disemboweled, and that's just heartless. So, yeah, keep the heart, keep level head, and keep talking about these issues and keep connecting with one another as human beings. That's ultimately what the story about wolves is about. Okay. Well, thanks everyone. Appreciate your interest and being here on this channel. Comments are always welcome. Thanks. Bye.